And so we have come to the final era of the show, at least for the time being, the Big World Big Adventures era. Now, this may be a hot take, but I actually find this era to be a lot of fun. Sure, I completely understand the complaints from the majority of the fandom, and sure, it's not as great as the Bennett era, but I like this era for what it is. It was something new for the Jam film team to try out. Plus, it still felt like Thomas to me, and still tried to be like classic Thomas, despite all the changes. And it had quite a lot of great episodes, with my favourite episode ever of the whole show coming from this era. But, like all eras, it has its stinkers. So today, I'll be counting down my picks for the worst episodes in the BWBA era. Now, some of these picks would be on par with Signals Crossed and Stevie Stafford from the Bennett era, but a few of these picks will be on par with the Hit era for how bad they are. So, let's get this list a-chugging. Kicking off the list is Thomas and the Monkey Palace. Now, I am a sucker for the India episodes of this era, but this might be my least favorite India episode in the whole era. Yes, even more than Thomas Makes a Mistake, because I could at least sit through that without getting bored. Whereas with this, while I don't think it's 100% bad, it's just so boring. It's just Thomas playing with monkeys. That's it. Also, where's Ashima? Why isn't she in this episode? She literally has India written all over it. That's probably my biggest issue with this episode. Other than that, it's just so boring with very little happening. In fourth place, we have Thomas in the Wild. Again, this episode isn't completely bad on its own. But again, there's very little happening in this episode. It's just Thomas abandoning his work to look for a panda. Like we haven't had that happen a billion times. Sure, seeing the baby pandas at the end is cute, but again, nothing happens in this episode. I don't have much to say other than it's just boring with very little happening. In third place, we have the Water Wheel. While this episode has a nice message about water pollution and that bamboo can be made into anything according to Hong Mei, this episode is just so unrealistic. While I'm one of those people who doesn't give two flying fucks about railway realism, there is no way that bamboo wheel would just bounce about the whole China railway like that. Not much to say other than, again, it's not bad, it's just boring and unrealistic. Now it's time for the two episodes that I actually consider to be the worst of this era because they are that bad. Taking the number 2 spot is Apology Impossible. This is one of the worst James-centered episodes I have ever seen since James in the Dark and James to the Rescue. James is just so unlikable in this episode, and him just picking on Philip like that is just so out of character for him. Especially since he himself saved him after a fucking crash. Look, I know he acts all vain and boastful and whatnot, but not to the fucking point where he bullies another character for most of the episode. This episode also has one of the worst morals in the entire series next to Thomas and the Snowman Party's moral, in which you shouldn't stand up to your bullies. Like, what? What kind of a moral is that? You always need to stand up for your bullies. Otherwise, the bully will make things worse for you no matter what. This episode just acts as a middle finger to what I have been through when it comes to being bullied. A simply bad episode all around. But taking the number 1 spot as the worst episode in the whole Big World Big Adventures era is Panicky Percy. This has to be one of the worst episodes in the whole fucking show. and is on my top 5 list for the worst episodes of the whole show. This episode portrays Percy at his absolute worst. Look, I get that Percy is usually the timid one of the STEAM team, but he's not fucking paranoid. 3 Steam Engines Gruff starting to throw Percy's character development he had in Tell the Brave, but this episode is a complete middle finger to all of the development he had in that movie. Simply an awful episode all around, and is my pick for the most hated episode in the whole BWBA era. It is Percy's worst leading episode, hands down. Fuck this episode to hell, big time. And so, the torture has ended. We have covered the worst of Thomas and Friends. At least for me personally. Look, if you like any of these episodes, then more power to you. But for me, these 35 episodes across all of the eras are a great example of how not to write a Thomas episode. Let me know in the comments what you guys' least favorite episodes are, because I'd love to know your guys' personal preferences. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to not miss out on all the content that goes up on the channel. Until the next video, bye guys.